date your species. So if you're monogamous, date monogamous people. If you're polyamorous, date polyamorous people. If you're gay, date gay people. If you're trans, date whoever you want to date, but don't try to take somebody who isn't that thing, whatever it is that you're purporting to be, and try to make them into that.
Welcome to the Crown Yourself podcast, where together we build your empire and transform your subconscious stories about what's possible for your business, body, and life. I'm your host, Kimberly Spencer, founder of CrownYourself.com, and I'm a master mindset coach, best-selling author, TEDx speaker, known to my clients as a game changer. Each week, you get the conscious leadership strategies you need to help you reign with courage, clarity, and confidence so that you too can make the income and impact you deserve. Imagine this podcast as your royal invitation to step into your full potential and reign in your divine purpose. Your sovereignty starts here, and your reign is now.
Laurie, welcome to the Crown Yourself podcast. I could not think of anyone better to dive in than the choice to get married at 75. Were you 75 when you made that choice?
No, I was 73 when I made the choice. I said yes at a wedding in Austin, Texas when I was 73. But I didn't really take it seriously. I didn't think, he asked me and I thought he was kind of joking. He proposed in a porta potty. So, how could I take it seriously? I was a captive audience.
Wait, you were in the porta potty or he was
Yeah.
in the porta potty?
So we were at a wedding in Austin, Texas. It was at one of those big spreads, like a ranch type place. And it had very fancy porta potties. They were wood and they had mirrors, they had heaters in them. They were nice. I couldn't open the door. So I said, Michael, I can't get into the porta potty. Can you help me? So he opened the door and slid in. So then I was in the porta potty, I was peeing. And he said to me, didn't you really think their vows were amazing? And I said, yeah. And he said, no, I really could. I could live inside the vows that they took. And I said, it was two very good friends of ours, Alexa and Jordan. And he said, they were amazing. Don't you think we could live inside of those vows? And I started thinking, what is he getting at here? Because we had an agreement we were never getting married. And then he said, so would you marry me? And I went, what? I'm peeing. And he said, yeah, and I'm asking you to marry me. So I said, yes, okay. Like, what am I going to, so then I said, can I keep peeing now? And so that was it. That was the proposal. And so I didn't really take it seriously for the first year. We didn't get a ring. I didn't, I told people, and then people started asking me, like my manicurist, where's the ring? She'd be doing my nails and she'd go like, where's the ring? And I'd go, oh my God, I'm getting pressure. I don't have relatives. My parents are not alive and I don't have a lot of other, cousins and whatever. So no one, my sister wasn't pressuring me, nobody, but my friends were like, are you going to take action on this? So about a year into it, I started to take it seriously. And then a friend of mine said, if you're really getting married, I'll plan your wedding for you. And my friend Dre just took over and she planned everything. So yeah, then we did it. So I was 75 when we did it.
How amazing.
It was crazy. Two things. I feel like one, I'm setting a precedent that people can do new things when they're older, like different things they haven't done before. Getting married for me was something I hadn't done before. And two, that you should wait a long time to get to know the person that you're relating to. At this point, we've been together 10 years and we're still newlyweds.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And you've been in the sex and relationship industry, like supporting people in healing their sexuality and navigating their relationships for 25 years.
Yes.
So you've been doing this for a long time. What's the originality of the proposal in a porta potty? And it's just one of the best stories. And the originality of how you do what you do in your relationships, is that something that you see most couples struggle with? Is they're trying to follow these boxed in rules that other people created that they never said?
Yes and no. I feel like they're trying to live up to some dream, and there's a standard, like they should know how to do this. So I feel like the fallacy starts when we're really young, especially if people have watched Walt Disney. Then they think that the women think that they're Cinderella, and the men think that they're the prince. And if they're same-sex marriages, one does it anyway. Like they still fall into those cartoons that we saw. And the prince didn't have any skills. He couldn't even find the foot. So he didn't have communication skills, for sure. Nobody talked about sex. So what I find the biggest problem is they find themselves being different. They find themselves arguing. They find themselves having some different values, or maybe different political feelings, whatever it is. Or they have a kid. You have two. Yeah. So they have a child, and all of a sudden the field changes, like the playing field changes, and they don't know what to do. They never learned what to do in the first place. They didn't, my biggest gripe is we learn algebra, geometry, earth science, and we don't learn communication skills, like how to talk to someone we love when we get out of high school and college. I knew how to speak French. I'm learning how to speak Spanish, but I never studied how do I communicate to my love, the love of my life, the most important person.
Yeah, that determines 90% of your happiness, basically, whoever you choose.
So I say it's happily ever after my ass. Like, I don't, what does that even mean? But people are ashamed. So the other biggest problem is that they don't want to come for help. One wants to come, the other one doesn't want to come because they're ashamed. They feel like they should be able to handle this, like on their own. What prepared them to do that? What prepares any couple to handle it? Nothing I know of.
What is the difference between what you do and like what a relational therapist does in the traditional clinical sense?
You know, I only know because I've heard from my clients. I just was on the phone this week with two people, actually three different couples, and they all said that the therapist said to them, you need to establish a date night. And they said if they heard date night one more time, like that wasn't getting it. That wasn't solving what they needed to solve. So I don't know. I don't know what they tell them. I think they work with them therapeutically, like they listen, and then they might make suggestions. So first of all, Michael and I offer them a whole program. We don't necessarily sit and listen to their problems. They fill out a sheet before they come to our workshop, and so we read to see where they're not getting along. But we give them a program, we offer it, and we focus on 3 aspects of the person, and then we also focus on 3 aspects of the relationship. So the first thing is self-love. How can I love you if I don't love myself? How can I need to love you from a full well. I can't love you from trying to fill my well, because then I never trust whether you really love me or not, or I really love you. I mean, it's a whole thing. So the first part of the program is self-love. Like, what is my love language to myself? It's completely different from what my love language is, what I want from somebody else. 2, love of the other. Like, how do I love you? How do you want to be related to? How do you want to be loved? And 3, love that manifests. We set our relationship to a higher purpose, not just you and me against the world, babe, but if we could produce anything out of this relationship, maybe it's children, but also what else? What other thing are we standing for in the world? Something I learned like back in the day in Landmark, like what is my life purpose and what is our relationship purpose? So those are the three things we focus on. And then we focus on fearless communication, exquisite touch. We do things like return to love formula. We do something called seduction is a team sport. I mean,
I love it.
Yeah, we have all these cool things that we run the couples through so that they're armed with like new stuff. Like, oh, and then we give them follow-up sessions. So they'll come to, let's say, a weekend with us, and then we give them a bunch of integration sessions, and they come and they go, okay, we tried this thing. It didn't work. What were we missing? And so we really give them a whole new skill set. And some of them might know nonviolent communication because we talk a lot about speaking so that the other person can hear, but we have to sometimes interrupt it, like right in the... Also, there's some funny things I'll just say to you. I'll give you a couple of examples. Women need connection to want to have sex.
Mm-hmm.
Men need sex to have connection. It's a cosmic joke. Right. Another one. Men take about 1 minute to be aroused and want to be touched directly on their genitals.
Mm-hmm.
And they also like to go fast because that feels good to men. Women take almost 40 minutes to get aroused. They have to be aroused through here. They have to be aroused through here. And then they have to be aroused through touch. So one of them is in a hurry and the other one is trying to slow down. Cosmic joke. So those are just a couple of the things that, women say, oh, he just wanted to get in my pants. That guy just wanted to get... Well, actually, he wanted to get connected.
Mm-hmm.
Men show love and through penetration, and women show love through penetration from their from their heart, from their breasts. So it's like the two ships can pass in the night, and both of the genders are making each other wrong for the way the other gender is doing it, and there's nothing to be made wrong. It's just, it really is part of our biology, and no one explains this to us. Nowhere do they teach us in sex ed, this is what happens for those in male bodies, and this is what happens for those in female bodies. So we're left to try to figure it out on our own. And some of the things we make up about it, like all the women who are making men wrong for this, that, and the other. I'm not talking about patriarchy here. That's a whole political thing. But just in the gender, they don't know any better. This is the way their mechanics works. This is the way their biology works. You can't make someone wrong for that.
Yeah.
That's like saying, okay, I'm wrong because I have blonde hair now and you have brown hair now. I started with brown hair. Would you make me wrong? Like my eyes are hazel blue. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
So that's
biological building.
Exactly. So those are some of the things we talk about, and we unravel these things to people, and they're astounded. Like, oh my God, I never thought of that. Oh, maybe I should stop picking on him, or I should stop picking on her for the way it just is.
Yeah.
So those are the things we cover. I don't think they cover that in traditional marriage and family counseling.
I don't know, because I didn't go through traditional marriage or family counseling. I can say that. But I do know that, I love that you talk about fearless communication, because that was my experiment with my husband, ongoing successfully 12 years later. He was the first person I was so radically honest with, because I literally manifested him 2 hours after I said a prayer to the universe. And I said, God, all I want is to be fully authentic and to travel. And this guy with long hair saunters up to me in a bar and asks if I'm single. And I was like, well, this is interesting. He's interesting. So I said, I'm actually in it. It's complicated because I was still with somebody at that time. And it was the on-off thing. And he was like, great, I'm not barking up the wrong tree. Let's grab a drink. And I was like, okay. And the more we talk, the more I was like, you know what? I'm going to share with him everything you're not supposed to talk about on a first meeting with the person, because there's all the supposed tos and whatnot. So the foundation of my relationship with my husband was always started on radical candor, and it's worked so far 12 years into my experiment. But it was just in sharing everything and being very fearless and open and sharing about feelings and questions and doubts and fears and all the things and being able to be trusting in that space. When you look at a couple's communication, how often do they placate to the other person out of fear or doubt or the desire to people please? Is that a majority of the people that you're seeing that are really struggling?
Well, we kind of have two categories. Like we have people who've been married for a really long time. So we have people who've been married like 21 years and above.
Mm-hmm.
They're not placating each other anymore. They're like, help us, we got to do something.
Yeah.
Or we see people in relatively new relationships who want to start off on the right foot, and they know, well, I'm a people pleaser, or I don't think I'm lovable, or whatever. Everyone thinks they're not lovable. There's every single person that I know thinks they're not lovable. So that's very common. So when we say fearless communication, we teach a system and rituals that enable a couple to sit down and say the unsayable. So you say you started out with the unsayable, like you figured at that point, you didn't have anything to lose. You're in a relationship, it's off again. You meet a guy, he's like, hey, are you available? And you go, okay, let me try this experiment. I'm just going to say it all and see if it's like throwing spaghetti to the wall.
Let's see if this sticks.
Let's see if this sticks. Let's see if he likes who I really am, which I have many videos, by the way, on Instagram where I tell people the worst advice that I've ever heard. And you can quote me on this because it's on video. I'm not making this up. The worst advice I have ever heard is, don't tell who you are to a new person, especially a new person that's a potential lover. Like somehow pad, only show your good side to the new person. No, I don't agree with that. You want them to fall in love with authentically who you are. You don't want to hide anything that 10 years later you say, honey, this mask I've been wearing for the past 10 years is really... it's not effective anymore. I'm taking it off and I'm going to show you the true, like, whoever I am. And the true whoever you are is not that bad. Yeah. Like, everybody has everything in them. So let them fall in love with who you really are. So show them that. I also say to set boundaries right away. So to say no sooner than you mean it.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I taught this long ago. I used to teach assertiveness training for women and assertiveness training for men in the, 70s. And I used to say, if you meet someone new, say no to a few things that you would normally say yes to. Like say no, or the movies, no. You want to go out to dinner next week? No. And then, because if you're going to have a relationship, you both survived no.
Mm-hmm.
Then when you really have to say no to something, like, no, we can't afford a new car right now, that no one dies. They heard no. No was built in. So there are boundaries. In my relationship, Michael was the first one to set boundaries. He said to me, if we have sex, don't expect to stay at my place or me to stay at your place. And I said, I thought it was weird, but I went, okay. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
So I said, okay. And then he said something else. Oh, he said, if we ever have been intimate, this is all before intimacy was on the table. If we ever have been intimate, don't expect that I will ever take a shower with you. And I'm like, this is really weird. Why is he even talking about this? And he said, because conserving water is my most important environmental value. And I just went, okay. So anyway, 6 months into the relationship, now we were already having sex and we were very connected. He says to me, can I stay over? I said, excuse me, you can't stay over. He said, you don't want to stay over. Sleep is more important to you. And he said, I know, but you didn't try to manipulate me off of the things that I said were my boundaries. So I can trust you. So now I can stay over.
Oh, isn't that amazing how boundaries work? Like all the games that people play in relationships And this was something like because my husband's 19 years older than I am. And so when we first started dating and I found myself like falling in love, and I knew that he had been previously married. In his previous marriage, they had decided not that they weren't going to have kids. And I was like, well, this is a non-negotiable and this is my boundary. And he was like, yeah, with you, I could see having kids. So I said, great, let's name them. So we named all 4. Not that I'm having all 4, but we cap it at 3. But that was my boundary of like, I didn't want to waste his time. I valued his time, especially as someone who was older, that I didn't want to waste his time. And I didn't want to waste my time trying to convince someone who didn't want what I wanted.
Exactly. That's the whole point. Why waste your time? You know, there's somebody very famous in my field named Reed Mahalko. He's the person who created cuddle parties, but Reed is more famous than cuddle parties. Anyway, he says, date your species. So if you're monogamous, date monogamous people. If you're polyamorous, date polyamorous people. If you're gay, date gay people. If you're trans, date whoever you want to date, but don't try to take somebody who isn't that thing, whatever it is that you're purporting to be, and try to make them into that. That's like, he said, that's a failure waiting to happen. So yeah, you told your husband, and he was like, yeah, I could see doing that with you. And I'm sure inside you, when he said that, your heart was like, oh, hey, this guy, he's on my same page.
Yep.
I said, I mean, the same thing happened to Michael and myself when we were going to have sex for the first time. I said to him, we're going to do this thing because we do rituals. So I said, we're going to make this thing called a bubble. And then we're going to have a conversation about desires, fears, and boundaries. And we're also going to talk about intentions. And so I said my desire, it jumped out of my mouth. I couldn't believe I said it. I said, I have other lovers in other parts of the world. I want to be with somebody that I can come home to. I travel a lot, and I'd like to have somebody close to home that I could count on. And then it came out of my mouth, and I was like, should I have said that? And then when it was his turn to say desires back, he said to me, I want what you said. I want to have a relationship close to home that I can count on. I can be that for you. Do you think you can be that for me? And then eventually, and also we said we'd have an open relationship. Then I got bored with anybody else that I was seeing. I didn't actually want to see anybody else. I remember looking at my watch when I was with someone else. And so then he said to me,
that's a sign.
Yeah. Then he said to me, what are you doing? Are you having a monogamous relationship without telling me? And I said, actually, I'm just bored by the other people that I thought I was interested in. So you're the only person I want to see. And you'll just have to deal with that. And then he stopped seeing the other people he was seeing too. And so like it all started to come like this. So we say we're monogamish.
Monogamish.
Yeah.
And I think that, it's like you find what works for you with the person who you work with, but as long as it's consensual and that there's those very clear boundaries of what you desire. And I think where so many people get tripped up is when they desire something that they're too scared to express with their partner. And so they go out and seek it out elsewhere, thinking that, because there's also especially for entrepreneurs, and we have many high-level entrepreneurs who listen to this show, those entrepreneurs who get their jollies from the excitement of starting something new, which sometimes doesn't always translate well in their relationships.
Correct. So correct. It's true. Yeah. There are people who like starting things. Anyway, that's the story of us. I mean, there's so much more, but this is how we work with couples. We give them real skills that they can work with. We like to say either you're stuck in arguing, like the same argument over and over and over and over again, and you can't stop yourselves because that's what you saw in your own home when you were growing up, or you saw it in the movies. I always think of that movie, The Roses, Battle of the Roses. There's so many ways that couples argue, like, Walt Disney didn't give people a way out. Or things change when you have a child, or things change when you go through menopause, or things change when you sell a house and go to a new location or whatever. Things change and it puts pressure on people. But there are things we've seen couples keep score on each other. We've seen couples have like out and out, like shouting matches, brawls, in the middle. We've seen couples argue all night. And, those are all very common. And we say that's ordinary. And we call our course Extraordinary Lovers. So, and it only takes a little extra to be extraordinary. It doesn't take like revamping your whole personality. It doesn't take being in therapy for years. It just takes being consciously aware of how you want to be related to and what your partner and how your partner says they want to be related to. And anyone can do it. It's easy.
Do you find that truth is like the entryway to opening up greater magic in the relationship and also the magic of sex and intercourse?
Yes, both. It takes both. I mean, speaking your truth is a really important part of being human. Having the permission, let your throat chakra be expressed, your creativity, your expression. And interestingly enough, that is closely tied to your sex area. So if you have permission to speak your truth, you probably have permission to have great sex. If you have permission to have great sex, you probably have permission to speak your truth. They go hand in hand. If one is blocked, it's interesting how the other one gets blocked because sex is so tied to creativity. It's not just creating a baby, which is what sex is tied to. That's the miracle of procreation. But sex is also tied to creativity, like inventing a cell phone and inventing a computer and a microphone and those head things that you have on and the painting behind you and that I blurred my screen. All that is creative. And that creative energy is stored where the energies of creation are, which is in the sex. So if something is blocked there, this is also blocked. If something is blocked here, that's also blocked. And they go hand in hand. Being able to speak about sex, when we give couples a formula for how to speak about sex, they're just like, I was so afraid to say anything because their ego, my partner's ego, was so on the line if I would make one correction, a little to the left, a little to the right. It's true. I mean, because also we don't learn how to talk about sex, and we don't have sex education. So
yeah, we have preventative disease education.
Exactly. Don't get pregnant. Don't get an STI. That's it.
Yeah.
Just say no.
Just say no. Wrap it before you tap it. Here's a banana. Put a condom on it.
Oh my God. I was once doing a class for teenagers and I bought all these colored condoms and there was one that was day glow. So the teenagers went into my closet to put the condom on the banana. And I heard one of them say, he was 15. He said, wow, if I wore this, I would always know where my penis was. I told that to his parents. It was so cute. A day glow condom. Anyway, that's it. That's the extent of the education. So being able to talk about it without anyone getting flustered and without somebody's ego going completely down is another skill that we teach. How do you talk about sex?
Boy, that it is a skill. I mean, I'm trying to, I wish there was a course on how to do it with children in an age-appropriate manner to kind of navigate, because it develops with age as far as the maturity level and understanding it. And just being able to see the difference of some kids may be very, like I have one child who I am aware that he will probably have a lot of enjoyment in his life.
I mean, I was like that. That's how I turned out to be this way. And my mother was frightened to death. She was sure. I gave a speech recently where I talked about my mother and my grandmother joining forces to have an anti-slut campaign, and the anti-slut was me, like the campaign was on me because they were so afraid. And yet I wasn't. I didn't take tremendous risks. I was just very precocious. So I wanted to learn everything there was to learn. It was like really exciting to me. Like my body was so excited all the time. And they didn't want me to find out about that. And so they went on this campaign. But I was very responsible. I really was. I didn't, lots of my friends used abortion as their means of birth control, and I didn't do that. I didn't have to do that. I was super responsible. So my father used to lecture, Laurie, responsibility is the ability to respond. And if you get pregnant, make no mistake, you'll deal with it. That's what he said to me. That's all he had to say. I was not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. And I think there is a level of maturity that kids are coming to. And there's a difference in the generations, obviously, with how they're embracing receiving help for both mental health, physical health, sexual health, and an openness to greater conversations and awareness. What have you noticed generationally in relationships that's shifting from women and men who are your age to the Gen Xers, to the millennials and younger?
There's a lot different. The millennials are all getting married. I don't know if they're in monogamous marriages, but there's a big emphasis on marriage. All the millennials I know want to marry. They definitely want to marry. They had enough of single parenting or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I notice a big difference between people over 50 and people under 50. So, I just wrote a new book called It Gets Better with Age.
Yes.
Happiness, It Gets Better with Age. And I run courses. On spirituality, sexuality, shamanism, all around the world. And when I do a regular course, I have lots of people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. When I run the course for people over 50, I only accept people over 50. And there's a lot of differences that way. Like, I don't know by, gen this and gen that, but I do know by this and this, 50 and over, 50 and under. People under 50 seem to be very tense, very trauma aware, very traumatized. There's a lot of victiming going on.
True.
And also just uptight about comparisons. Like, in my under 50 courses, people are like checking out the other person. All the other women are checking out all the other women. Men are checking out all the other men. Like, how am I measuring up? Da, da, da. People over 50 don't care. They're just like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? How am I going to get free and have a fabulous, pleasure-filled life now that my kids are grown or they're almost grown? Who am I going to spend the rest of my life with if they're single? Lots of couples coming to those courses also and saying, like, okay, we made it this far, or this is our third marriage and we want to make it. It's different. The life issues are different. People over 50 don't care how big their tits are necessarily. They're not comparing, like ball sacks or, no, literally. I mean, they're just not looking and going like, I'm less, I'm more because I'm, so there's not, and they also have more permission to speak their truth. Like, they've lived long enough to say it, whatever it is.
Yep.
So my best expression I can tell you is, we have a game called Temple Slut. In that game, somebody for 7 minutes can say their boundaries and then put on a blindfold and receive anything else that people could do on their body. And it just lasts for 7 minutes. But it could be like the fantasies that you had your whole life and you could never let yourself do it. And I had somebody in my first over 50 course say, okay, she came up to the front and said, I don't have any boundaries. I said, you have to have boundaries. No, I don't have any. They can do whatever they want. And some pretty wild things happened in that 7 minutes. And I'm not going to go into graphic detail.
Yeah.
When she stood up, she ripped off and they all scatter, so you don't know who did what. It's like, really, it's anonymous. She ripped off the blindfold and went, I don't know what I waited for. My whole life, I've been waiting for an experience like that. That was great. And I just laughed and laughed and laughed. I mean, she said, it's my life. I can experience whatever I want. So that's what I notice is different. I have noticed also, I can put it on one group or the other. I can just say that when I first started teaching classes in Tantra, I had people who really wanted to learn, I had people who came sometimes because they thought they were going to learn esoteric sex practices, and it ended up shifting like their whole life, their whole way of awareness, their whole presence, and their whole feeling of body, mind, and spirit being connected, rather than I know the Kama Sutra. Like I don't teach that. I don't care, and you can see that on a poster.
I have the Kama Sutra and pop up.
That's great. Yeah, and so what? You know what I mean? Like, okay, you're a gymnast, you could do that.
There's a lot of ropes that are involved, apparently, and a camel.
Yeah, that stuff kind of doesn't make a difference. What makes a difference is if all your dots are connected. Like if you believe that your body is sacred from the neck down, not that it's some shameful thing to be disowned. So if you believe that your body is sacred, then your dots start to connect, like body, mind, and spirit become one. And that's what people used to come for. And now I feel like people are coming to these courses to heal traumas. And I'm not going to say that traumas don't get healed. They do, but some people are too traumatized and shouldn't come. They need some therapy before they come, because it's a fast canceling that goes on, fast pushback that goes on when people feel like something that happened in a course, something they were asked to do, opened a trauma. Well, we're all traumatized. So that's what I'm letting, like if I'm doing transformational work, I'm letting go of my limitations. I'm letting go of my traumas. I'm letting go of the past. I'm creating my future. And some people need more help than being able to just transform that. But when I first started, there weren't any complaints. Everybody just like walked out of the class like on a layer of clouds. And now there's much more scrutiny. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying like it's different.
Yeah, I think, when I was going through my biodynamic breathwork and trauma release certification, that was really about like how to navigate trauma through the body through breath, which is so powerful because breath is so intimately tied with sex. But when you're just focusing on breathing, sometimes when you get into that more heavier breathing, which can happen through sex, like that's, as a practitioner, I have to know when to back my clients off of that space so that they can, especially if they've had trauma, because sometimes like I had one client, we barely even scratched the surface of breathing, like just breathing. And she was so stressed in her body that as soon as she started actually having a full body breath, she started to have a panic attack, and I had to like release. And so I had to pull her back into just very basic, easy, what I would call easy, but for her was actually very challenging, was parasympathetic breathing. Exhaling longer than you inhale. But the breath and the body, they're so intimately tied. And especially when dealing with anybody who has had significant trauma, like when stuff starts coming up, it can come up fast. And if you're not prepared to physically deal with it, because your subconscious mind is running your body. And so if you're opening up the body to be like, okay, I'm going to receive some stuff, the subconscious mind's like, oh, okay, she's ready to process this. That's great.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you're like, fuck no. I didn't expect that trauma.
It's true. And that happens. So I just say that the younger generations now are more informed, but they're also more informed about how to get you if you misstep or whatever. So there's a lot. We're in a crazy world. We're very much in a crazy world. We have more boundaries. We have more ground rules. We have more, the agreement field is greater. We have to be more trauma informed. There's a lot. There's really a lot. Yeah.
So how does sex and happiness get better with age?
Well, first of all comes the piece that I said about not being afraid to speak our truth. So there's more permission. There's more permission for pleasure. Over 50, there's more permission for pleasure. There's more permission to not care about what people think about what I say or how I am. Dress how I want to dress, be how I want to be, whatever. I don't care what people think anymore. You experienced me skipping around a room.
I loved it.
75, me too. And I was wearing a motorcycle jacket and faux leather pants. I mean, I was like, oh my God, what an outfit to be skipping in.
I couldn't think of a more perfect outfit to be skipping in. You just needed some tool.
I needed a motorcycle. So it gets better in that there are things we have to do. Like we have to practice intentional sex. In the book, I write about it, to practice intentional sex. And that means like intending to have sex. Even if we don't have a partner, we have to have sex with ourselves, because sex keeps hormones and peptides and all kinds of things going in the body. So the body needs that kind of stimulation. We need oxytocin, and we may not have a partner. So if we don't have a partner, then we have to create oxytocin in ourselves. So sex is really important, and it can get better because we're not as self-conscious. Like I can go for my pleasure now. I don't have to worry about what this person thinks about me. And this is before my husband, because like if I got married at 75, there was 5 years between 50 and 75. So it's like what you said. I decided to just tell the truth. So people over 50 it's like telling the truth is easier. And then saying, I just want pleasure. I just want a one night stand with you. Or I just want to see you for sexual reasons. I don't want to be in another relationship, or whatever it is. So that helps. Speaking truth. I say to people that they have to break up their routines. Like they have to do new things. Sometimes when people get older, they think, oh, I have this routine and it feels safe. And in fact, that safety of routine starts to make our minds smaller. So for example, when seniors don't want to get a new phone, or they don't want to learn about Zoom, or they don't want to learn a new program or what an app is, that limits their time on earth, and that limits their pleasure because they start to feel less equipped. They don't know what young people are talking about. Also, another thing is to have young people in your life, like different age groups in your life, not just hang around like a senior home or something.
Oh, yes.
It gets better with age because having sex can get better because we're telling the truth. And it can also, the better the sex is, can also help us stay younger and feel better about ourselves because of the chemicals, oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine. And then I guess it's the feeling of, I got nothing to lose. Let me just have all the pleasure I deserve.
Like the word pleasure, it's like there's such a concept in the entrepreneurial culture of like hustle and work, and like there's all these like that have these like hard, more negative connotations, or at least presuppositions that aren't really necessarily from pleasure. And I have realized that especially those who have experienced trauma, they struggle. Like I know I did. I struggled to receive pleasure, to enjoy just not even sexually, but just life, like for a little bit, like just because of experiences. So how do we get back in touch with our pleasure?
These are free. They don't cost anything. They don't break up with us. We touch ourselves. That's first. Homework is to first find out what brings us pleasure. And we can't communicate what brings us pleasure to somebody else unless we know what brings us pleasure. And so we experiment. So we take our bodies into our own hands. It's like, I didn't publish this book, but I have another book coming out. I think I'm just going to publish it sort of as an ebook. It's called Owner's Manual. And when you get a new car, you get a book like this thick, and it tells you everything about your windshield wipers and about your tire pressure. Well, we don't get anything like that when we get a body. So I have an owner's manual, and it's geared towards the car. Like these are the headlights, and there's windshield wipers are the eyelashes, and then the heart is like the gears or the steering. And so we learn to operate this. And when we learn to operate this, we then can tell somebody else, hey, this feels really good to me. I know this sounds really kinky, but I'd like to be restrained. Or I was thinking about being blindfolded and fed food, or whatever it is. And I just think that people who are older have more permission. They have more permission to use toys. They have more permission to self-pleasure. They have more permission to speak about it and tell their lasting partner or their new partners, I like this. How about you? Do you want to try this? Let's try this. Let's see what happens. Let's go skinny dipping, in Hawaii. Let's go.
Liberating. I highly recommend skinny dipping.
Yeah. So the permission for pleasure it increases with age. And people aren't hustling so much. They still might be in the hustle, but they know what that's like, and they also know they deserve pleasure. Hopefully they do.
Hopefully. And I think that there also comes there's that enjoyment of because creation is the masculine and the feminine energies, and whether that's creation of the business, I think there's a difference between hustle and creative life force that's permeating through you as you're moving throughout the business activities of your day. I think that there's a big difference when you're approaching it from creative life force versus this perception that typically comes from scarcity and need versus from pleasure, desire, and abundance.
Yes. I got it. Yes. Yes. And it for some of us, it takes us a while to actually fully understand this or fully grasp it. And once we do fully grasp it, it's hard to turn it back. Pleasure is my birthright. This is definitely a Laurie-ism. I say this all the time. If we weren't meant to have pleasure, we would have been born in wood, metal, or glass. Those are natural occurrences on the planet that they don't feel anything. We are born in skin, the largest sensory organ, and we're supposed to feel. And as much as we're supposed to go, oh, that's hot when we touch the stove that's on, we're also supposed to oh, that's so great. That feels so good. And we don't get enough of that. We get more this and this than we get. But then for some of us, we turn this into pleasure. There's lots of role plays and scenes, and there's spanking involved. So there's lots of things that are pleasurable. And I found out by teaching a course in BDSM that by learning and teaching that the smallest amount of pain intensifies the greatest amount of pleasure. So you can be in a pleasure sequence, and all of a sudden you could agree in advance that somebody's going to pinch you or spank you or do something that causes some pain. And in the right moments, combined with the right things, 1 ounce of pain can create pleasure off the charts. I don't know why, but the endorphins enhance everything. And
that tracks. I mean, as someone who's given natural birth twice, very much there's the pain of the contraction, and then the pleasure and the release of the endorphins as the baby's coming through. So, I mean, that makes sense to me as to why our bodies can be built in that way, though I won't say it's a minute amount of pain. But it's a different kind of pain. It's one it's intimately tied with the pleasure and also the creation, the full act of creation coming through. So it makes sense that in the act of creation, i.e. sex, that little bit of pain can actually stimulate a greater amount of pleasure.
It can. It's amazing. So that's a little known factoid. The only people who know really about that are people who are into kink. And, it's a well-kept secret. It's fashionable now, lots of fashions have collars and things, but I don't know how much people are really into it. I just know that I've seen a room of 60 people really into it, and I can tell you that they're in ecstasy, and there's some pain happening.
What do you find people are most ashamed about when it comes to their sexuality?
Oh, God.
Everything?
Yeah, well, it just depends on where people grow up. It depends on the generation they grew up in, the decade, what was being talked about. But people are basically, girl children are embarrassed to have a body and to have breasts that grew and to have menstruation, like to have blood. All these things are embarrassing, especially if the parent or parents never said anything. I have circles filled with women who say that they were never told anything. They thought they were dying. Like they started bleeding and then no one ever told them anything about it. So then they rushed home and they said, Mom, I'm dying.
That's so traumatizing.
I cannot imagine, but I can tell you, like, I know many, many, many people that this happened to. So that's one thing. So there's an embarrassment. It also depends if you were a girl and you had brothers. So they might have protected you, but they also made fun of the growing body. So female children are often embarrassed to have a body at all, that people look at it. I had a woman from an Arab country who had huge breasts, and she said, these grew up before I did. And they determined that I would live in and wear a tent for the rest of my life. Of course, she threw that off by the time she met me. But she said, like, I hated having a body and I hated having breasts because they determined the course of my life. That's pretty intense. And then for those in male bodies, I'd say that they feel when they start spontaneously ejaculating, like they don't know what happened, especially if no one's told them about that. So they think that also something's wrong with them. Like, what just happened to me? It happens usually in the night. They get embarrassed in school if they have to stand up and read. They get erections, and then no one told them anything about it. So their body's doing these things that they didn't tell it to do. And then older, like adult men feel, because there's been so much pushback against men, anger towards the patriarchy, lots of feminism movements, kind of like putting men down. Men are embarrassed to get erections. Like, if they're walking down the street and they see somebody, it's usually a visual thing for men. They see somebody who's really attractive to them, their body has a physical reaction and they want to hide that. I know men who have worn overshirts and long coats just because they got so much arousal in their lives that they had to hide that. Now, we don't see that in football players or basketball players or whatever. We see male prowess, but your average human has shame about having a body. And then there's shame about the thoughts, fantasies, thoughts that they have when they see others and they're attracted to them. There's so much because we're not taught to talk about it. So it's all, and based on religion. So it's all, it's all squashed down. And when it comes out, it seems a bit overwhelming for some people. Like, oh my God, I'm allowed to be a sexual being? Yeah, you are. And this is how you got here. You're not supposed to just know everything on like the night that you're making a baby.
Yeah. I think the level of just education, but also acceptance of like the body develops. Like, I remember just the comments that I would get, especially because I was an early developer, and both from young girls and from my dad, that were just like pointing out things that I was just like, that makes me uncomfortable, but I didn't understand how to read my body. And thus I didn't like my body because I had a curvier body. I wondered why I wasn't born as like a stick figure. And thus 10 years of bulimia thus ensued. So, but thank God I've come to a point where I like love my body. I love my curves. I'm like, this body's birthed a few humans. It's a temple. It's sacred.
Yes,
but it took a turning point of being able, and the thing that turned the corner for me was understanding tangible, tactile feeling and being able to feel myself again. Like truly just feel. And I love how you say the hands are so powerful and they're free, but like not even like it doesn't even have to be feeling anywhere in your genitals. It can just be like having your hands on your chest and being able to feel your body and the touch. And then I would explore for myself when I was in my own healing journey of like, oh my gosh, I don't like it when I touch my hips because that's fat or that's bigger. And I would allow myself to just notice the thoughts that came up as my hands touched my body. And that was a powerful awareness to just look at the shame that was stored inside this temple. And I think that, if we could all clean out that shame, we'd all be making a lot more money because shame is intimately tied with your ability to make income.
Wow, that's amazing when you say that. To me, shame is a constructed, it isn't a true expression of emotion. It is constructed for control. So it's either constructed by the government or it's constructed by the church or it's constructed by the parents. Shame, and the way I look at it is this. I mean, I consider my job on the planet to be to eradicate fear, guilt, and shame around having a body. So I had a golden retriever. And when I moved from one home to another, I lived in LA then. I moved into a brand new condo, brand new carpet, brand new everything. And we got there and the dog just messed the whole carpet. Day one, he just made tracks, marks of both sorts on my carpet. And I remember I was going to work. I worked in corporate then, and I called a friend and I said, you have to come over and take this broom out of my hand because I'm going to kill this dog. And my friend came over and he took the broom out of my hand and he said, calm down, this can all be cleaned. And I was like, yeah, sure. It was like the vertical blinds and the carpet and everything. Brand new. I was living there. This was day 2.
Oh, God.
And what happened after he took the broom out of my hand was my dog saw a Frisbee and he ran to get that Frisbee and he came with the Frisbee. Come on, well, let's play. Like he had no shame. None. And I said, well, dogs don't have shame. Why do people carry this for 35, 40 years? Why am I ashamed that I got breasts and I'm carrying this for half of my life? The dog carried that my whole place for 1 second. He saw a Frisbee. It was over. So I know that that's a man-made, constructed control mechanism, and that's what shame is about. I don't see shame as anything healthy. Some people talk about healthy shame. I think that's more remorse or regret. Like if I hurt somebody, then I feel bad about it. I have remorse and I have regret, but I'm not ashamed. To me, that's not even a real emotion. I try to have people root it out of the horses don't have it. Dogs don't have it. Cats don't have it. They just do whatever they want. And if you punish them, they're punished for 1 second.
Yeah. Until, you can think of a dog that's been abused and traumatized. Then that's a different story.
Just like us.
Just like us.
Yeah. Just like us.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like humans.
Story. Exactly.
Laurie, I have loved our conversation and just the transformative work that you're doing for people and the planet and uprooting and eradicating shame and guilt. It is noble, and I am so excited that more people, just from hearing this interview, if you were to give 2 things that you would wish that people would do, something tactical and tangible that they could do to eradicate shame or experience more pleasure, what would you recommend?
Well, I'd like to say that my whole practice is based on breath, sound, and movement. So I would tell them to breathe, like you talked about earlier, and to consciously breathe, inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth and seeing what that feels like, getting in touch with their feelings and their emotions through breathing rather than stopping and holding the breath. Making sound, maybe touching themselves and making sound when they feel pleasure, and then making sound when they feel pleasure when they're with another person, and moving the body. Like movement is life. Moving the body as often as possible. In any, like getting up from the desk and walking, or for me, it's right now in Arizona, it's jumping in the pool, which I'll probably do as soon as we finish. Yeah. But breath, sound, and movement, it's the easiest thing, and it's what makes us alive. So that for sure. I would also tell them to read my books. Like they could get, my books are filled with, it's just like you and me talking, and they're filled with tips, call outs on, I say, how can you tell somebody to bring you pleasure if you don't even know what pleases you? Partners are flying blind. They don't know what to do. They're making it up as they go along. So tell them.
Yeah, give them the owner's manual.
Exactly. Yeah. And I want to just let me say one other thing, and that is that I do work with corporate people. I work with successful women who haven't thought about what's going to happen when they retire, when they're not like married to the corporation, and also who have to be in the masculine like all day long, like we do when we're working. We have to be in our masculine polarity. How do I switch into my feminine polarity? How do I spice my life up if I'm this all day? So I have to shift gears. So I do work with that, and I work with corporate men in marriages and in relationships who like haven't spent that much time looking at them. They're mostly spending it on the corporation. So there's a whole lot of connection between sexuality and business and happiness and all of it. So
yeah, and it's possible to have it all.
Yes, it is.
To have the joy and the pleasure in all without neglecting one for the other.
Exactly.
So, Laurie, I'd love to switch into a little bit of rapid fire. You
okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Who is your favorite female character in a book or a movie, and why?
Oh, my goodness. The first one that comes to mind is Scarlett O'Hara.
I would never have thought that.
Me neither. I can't, but I will say that I love Alias. I love the Garner show. I love women who are like badass, counter spies.
Yeah. What person, alive or alive and in their time, would you want to trade places with just for a day to be in their body, see how they thought, experience the world as them?
No, I can't say.
Yeah.
Marie Antoinette.
Not the day she lost her head.
No, not the day she lost her head. Femme fatale.
What is your money routine, Laurie, as a successful businesswoman?
Oh, I have rose oil from India. Rose is the scent of the heart. And I often put rose oil on $100 bills. And then when I take them out to pay something, as if I use cash much, but when I do use cash, when I take them out to pay for something, the clerk and everybody's like, what is that? And I go, it's rose oil. It's like I'm putting my heart where my money is.
I love that. It reminds me of the scene in Elle Woods as well, which she's like, it's pink and scented. But I love that with the rose oil. I'm totally, that's a new one. We haven't heard that one with.
That's right.
I'm totally doing that. That sounds amazing.
You can't do it on your credit card, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't do it on PayPal and Venmo, but
get a little oil on your phone. What is your morning and evening routine to set you up for a successful day?
Yeah, that's good. My morning routine, I wake up and I immediately do movement. I stretch. Well, first I might look at my phone. I'm like that. But then I put it down. I stretch. I do yoga. I do a workout. I have a gym at home, so I work out with weights or in a Bosu ball or whatever. I do at least 20 minutes of something. When I'm on the road, which is 50% of the time at least, I have elastic bands. So I do a workout when I wake up. I also have this roller, this thing that looks like a dog bone, only it's big styrofoam thing. I roll on that because my back needs to get uncrinked. I can't afford traveling with a chiropractor. And then I do something aerobic. So I swim or walk or whatever. So yeah, every single day. And in the evening, I have a glass of red wine and I look at what my schedule is for the next day. I look to see what's coming up and I plan out, like, what am I going to wear, or how am I going to do this in between this or this? So I plan out my next day always. And then I take a Spanish lesson
Love it.
before I go to sleep.
Well, it's a good way to have your unconscious mind retain it.
Mm-hmm.
Have you started dreaming in Spanish yet?
No, I don't dream. I know I dream, but I never remember my dreams. I probably have 10 dreams in my life that I remember, and that's it. In 76 years, I remember 10 dreams. Like, I don't have cognizant memory of my dreams. So I wish to, like, I'm going to set that as an intention. I wish to dream in Spanish.
Ooh, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
What do you define to be your queendom?
My queendom. It's like where I am. What I move through the world, either in a car or on a plane or through my home, through my connections. And I just feel, yeah, I have earned the status of being a queen in this life. I say what I want. I get what I want. I produce what I want. I require that I be related to in a certain way. And if someone doesn't respect me, like, I don't spend much time with them. Like, if they don't have to bow to me. Although some people do, it's part of Tantra, but I don't accept disrespect at all. And I respect people the same way. If I misstep with them, I call them to clean it up.
Well done. Laurie, we have your book, Sex, Happiness, It Gets Better with Age, and Extraordinary Lovers for Couples. How do we find you? How do we get in a workshop with you? Plug yourself, Queen.
You can, I'll hold these up. First of all, I'll hold up these. Oh, this one has something in it. This is my new one, Sex and Happiness, It Gets Better with Age. Oh, it's blurred. Hold on. The blurring effect took effect. This is my old one, Sex and Happiness, The Tantric Laws of Intimacy. They're both really good reads and fast. You can get those on Amazon, or you can get them at my website. You can find me on my website, lauriehandlers.com. It's Handlers. It has an S on the end. If people leave it off, they don't find me. Even though I own all those websites where you could.
Yeah.
Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm very active on those. I'm not active on TikTok. Sorry for those TikTokers. And if people go to my website, there's two things. They can get a free download, which is a workbook on boundaries, which a lot of people need. Most people don't know what boundaries are. People think, I told you my boundary. So what? Like, it's up to me to enforce my boundaries, not you. So a workbook on boundaries, and I also have an inner circle that people can join for free at first, and they can, like, I've been starred in 3 films. I have 15 years of podcasting. I like all kinds of stuff that people can get to get a hold of the things that I teach and the knowledge that I have. So I welcome people to come to Laurie's Inner Circle.
Laurie, you're such a badass. And I love the fact that you have, like, reversed age through beautiful sexual transmutation. And, like, I was literally telling my mom about you, who is also 76. And she was like, really? Like, she was so impressed.
Get this book for her.
Yeah.
I told a lot of people that are my students, like, get this book for your parents.
Yeah.
Have hope for your parents. Get this book for your parents. Because it tells them, do new things. Stop, whatever.
Yeah. And yeah. I think it's amazing. Just, you are such a testimony that it just gets better and that it can keep on getting better. And I love that about you and your mission. So go follow Laurie, go get in her world, grab her books, and let life get better with age. As always, my fellow sovereigns, own your throne, mind your business, because your reign is now.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. If what you heard resonated with you, be sure to subscribe and start creating a bigger impact now by sharing this with a friend. Just by doing that one simple act of kindness, you are creating a royal ripple to support more people in their sovereignty. And if you're not already following on social media, connect with me everywhere at crownyourself.now for more inspiration. I am so excited to connect with you in the next episode. And in the meantime, go out there and create a body, business, and life that rules. Because today, you crown yourself.